Today we're going to be comparing the OnePlus 6T versus the 7 Pro, and on paper the 7 Pro looks like there's a lot of upgrades and new stuff for the camera. Let's see if the quality is actually better. This is the low light test of the front facing camera, and I'm walking next to the street right now with plenty of cars passing by, so sorry for the noise. But these lights up here are the orangey ones, the really tungsten ones, not the daylight ones. So this is how it looks like, and I can see a lot of reds on my skin from all the brake lights. So yeah, let's move on to the next section. The biggest difference I've seen in these two phones is the OnePlus 7 Pro has the ultra wide angle lens and has more zoom. What you see on the OnePlus 7 Pro is 3x, but technically is 2.2 or something, and basically 2x from 6T. For the ultra wide angle lens, it's not consistent in terms of color. Sometimes I see it as more green, sometimes it's more orange. The main sensor is more closer to the OnePlus 6T colors. Now moving on to colors on the OnePlus 7 Pro, things seems to be more gray, more neutral, but at the same time, in the shadows, it's much more harsh than the OnePlus 6T. Personally, I do like the colors on the OnePlus 6T more, just because on the greens especially, they pop out more, it's more punchier, and it's more vibrant. For my test, I think the OnePlus 6T has the better HDR. I can see more in the shadows, or the shadows seems to be more bright, but at the same time, the highlights seems to be more controlled. So from my observations at this point, I do like the OnePlus 6T camera more than the OnePlus 7 Pros. So for me, I don't think there's a necessary upgrade just for the camera. Yes, the OnePlus 7 Pro is useful with the ultra wide angle lens, which is great when you're in tight spaces or you want to capture some group photos. Now moving on to portrait mode, on the OnePlus 7 Pro, it uses the telephoto lens to capture this mode, but on the OnePlus 6T, you get a wider angle of view, which I find more useful when you're in tight spaces. And throughout my usage on the OnePlus 6T, it recognizes more of the object more often than the OnePlus 7 Pro. It may be because it's so cropped in, it won't recognize the object, but then I would have to take 3 to 5 steps back. Even so, there are some times that it doesn't recognize it, and I try to match it as much as the 6T, but the 6T still recognizes things way more faster and much better than the 7 Pro. One thing I don't like about the OnePlus 7 Pro portrait mode is how much it crops in. So if you're sitting across the table and you want to take a portrait picture of your friend, most likely it's only going to capture chest up, which is pretty tight. For the front facing camera, I do think the OnePlus 7 Pro HDR is a bit better. It's not the biggest difference, and you also get a pop-up camera, which is pretty cool and is something different than a lot of other cameras or phone cameras I've used. Now moving on to low light, one thing I don't recommend doing is using the ultra wide angle. It doesn't capture enough light, so you'll see a lot more noise, and when you point at light sources, there's weird flaring. For the main camera lens, the OnePlus 7 Pro is much better at low light photography than the OnePlus 6T. Now these are really dark places, and the OnePlus 6T doesn't really capture all of it, whereas in normal mode, the OnePlus 7 Pro can easily do it. And night scale mode as well. When you take pictures in night scale mode on the OnePlus 7 Pro, things are much more snappier, much more faster. On the OnePlus 6T, you would have to hold it still until it's done taking a picture. So my experience with the night scale mode, the OnePlus 7 Pro is much better. For portrait mode in low light, I do like the OnePlus 6T better because it recognizes objects much more faster, and sometimes the OnePlus 7 Pro doesn't recognize anything at all. Now moving on to video, for stabilization, they're both exactly the same. I can't really tell a big difference between these two. Now for the colors, the OnePlus 7 Pro, it's warmer, and for the 6T, it's cooler, but if you look at the whites, especially on that building, the white is more white on the OnePlus 6T, and the OnePlus 7 Pro, the whites look more yellowish. So the white balance seems to be correct on the OnePlus 6T, but on the 7 Pro, the colors seems a bit more punchier. For anyone that's planning to record video on the telephoto lens, on the OnePlus 7 Pro it is stabilized, whereas on the OnePlus 6T, it's not stabilized at all. Both of these phones can do 4K 60, and in terms of colors, they look almost exactly the same. If anything, I think the greens is a bit more vibrant on the OnePlus 6T. For low light recording, there's a lot of micro jitters on both phones, but I do like the OnePlus 7 Pro much better just because you see a lot more noise going on in the sky on the OnePlus 6T. When you're shooting in 4K 60, the complete opposite happens. The OnePlus 6T is way cleaner, and the OnePlus 7 Pro, you can see a lot of noise and a lot of artifacts. So in terms of camera only, I don't think it's a huge upgrade from the 6T to the OnePlus 7 Pro. The biggest thing is the ultra wide angle lens, which you don't have on the OnePlus 6T, the better telephoto lens, and the cool pop-up camera. But in all honesty, the OnePlus 7 Pro is a really good phone. The only thing I find lacking is the camera. So that is my comparison. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.